All right, so I want to talk a little bit about appraisals. When you are flipping a house, buying a house, if on the sell side or if you're on the buy side, whatever the case may be, in that process, you are going to have to get an appraisal. There's really no way of getting around it. It's just a part of the process. It's what needs to happen, especially if the buyer is getting a loan on the property. That lender is going to require an appraisal. And again, whether you're on the buy side or the sell side, if you're the seller or the buyer, if you're the buyer and you're getting a loan, even if you're getting a hard money loan, you're still going to need to have an appraisal done within that sale process. So any loan, the lender is going to require to have an appraisal so they know how much the property is worth. All right. The property has to appraise. They're not going to lend you money on a property that is below market value. It's just, there's no way around it. That being said, once the appraisal is done, you're going to get a value back. Now, sometimes that value that comes back may be a good value, or it could be a very bad value. It really depends on the day. It depends on I'm sorry to say it, but it depends on the type. It depends on the mood of the appraiser. It depends on if it's a Tuesday or Thursday. No, I'm kidding. What I'm basically saying, what I'm making fun of is an appraisal is honestly just a price of opinion. So it really depends on the knowledge and competence of the individual at that time that's doing an appraisal. Okay, so the appraisal, you can order one appraisal one day and then the very next day have an appraisal done by a completely different person and get two completely different values. Unfortunately, that's just the way the system is, and that's just how we go about valuing properties in the marketplace. That being said, if you get an appraisal back and you are not satisfied with the value that came back from that appraiser, you do not have to accept that value. Okay, a lot of people think that just because the appraisal was done and you get the report back from the appraiser, that's it. You may get the appraisal back and it's a little bit less or a lot less than what you thought or what you think that the appraisal should be. And that can really, be a detriment to the deal, especially if you've done your homework, the comps, and that, the property is worth this much, and you have proof of the property being worth that much, and the appraiser comes in and just completely either just miss the comps, they're just not competent. That happens. That has happened to me. But if that does happen, you are allowed to challenge that appraisal. You do not have to accept that appraisal. A lot of people think that they just have to accept it, and you do not have to accept it. You can go back to the lender and you can tell them that you either want to pay for a new appraisal or you want to challenge the appraisal that the appraiser, brought in. And it's perfectly okay for you to do that. There's no law against that. And I advise you to do that if the appraisal came back lower than what you think it should be. Now, I'm not just saying, just challenge it, out of the blue just because you feel like challenging it. No, if you challenge it, then you are going to have to provide some type of proof as to why you think the value should be, what you think it should be. So make sure that you have all the updates that you've done to the property, whether it be plumbing, electrical, roof, all of the finishes you've done inside of the house. Make sure you have a record of all that. Kitchen countertops, kitchen cabinets, flooring, AC, bathroom remodel, the finishes there. And not only that, you want to make sure that you have other comps that have sold within the neighborhood, justifying the price that you have the property listed for. So you can justify your price. So you need to provide the appraiser with comps and any updates that you've done to the property. So that way, when you go back and challenge the appraisal, you could be like, hey, Mr. Appraiser, hey, Mrs. Appraiser, these are the comps that I'm using and comps that I feel are justifiable to, set the value of my property to where I think it should be. And don't be rude about it. Don't be rude about it. Just be professional. Provide proof and the comps and the updates that you've made to the property. And now it's just up to the appraiser to see your comps and see your updates and decide whether they want to honor the value at which you have the price listed at, or they may decide to come up just a little bit. It's really up to them at that point. But just be professional and make sure you provide proof, and you will be surprised as to how the value can drastically change from the original report that was given to you by the appraisers. Now, the appraiser may not come back with the price that you want after you challenge the appraisal. It is what it is. They may think that their report is correct, and they may not come up. They may come up with just a little bit, but that still doesn't help your situation at all. So if that happens, then you're able to order a new appraisal. Now, depending on the situation, depending on if you are willing to pay for another appraisal or the timeline within the contract, you just have to make a sound decision on if it's worth paying for a new appraisal. So if the value came back maybe just a little bit under your listing price, you have to take that into consideration. So, either way, you have options. I just don't want you to think that just because the report came back lower than what you expected, that you just have to accept that, because you don't. You can either challenge the appraisal, which I would recommend you do first before paying for a whole new one. Just challenge it with your proof, with your comps and with your list of updates and upgrades that you did to the property. If that doesn't work out, then look into the option of purchasing, a brand new report. And it's happened to me. I've actually purchased a whole new report. And first what happened is that I challenged the appraisal and I provided comps, I provided updates, and the appraiser actually came up, I want to say he came up 20 or 30 grand. But however, it still wasn't enough. I was doing a cash out refinance on this property. I still own this property to this day, but I was doing a cash out refinance, and the appraisal came back, and it wasn't. It would have ruined the deal. It literally hit what the price that he had it at. It would have ruined the deal. So I challenged the appraisal, and he came up 20 or 30 grand. But still, it still didn't help. It still ruined the deal, how he came up. But that just goes to show that I had comps, I had justifiable comps, and I had a list of upgrades that I did to the property. And he came up 20 or 30 grand, which is a significant amount, but it still didn't help. So I had to actually purchase an entire new appraisal report. So I got a whole new appraisal. I paid the fee all over again to get a new appraisal, because I just knew that I was like, okay, I did my homework. I looked at these comps multiple times before I started the cash out refinance process. And I was able to I was able to do the new appraisal because I was in the middle of a cash out refinance. So I had more time than if it was an actual sale, because I already owned the property and I was just refinancing it. So I didn't have any issues, doing this cash out refi or doing the new appraisal on my cash out refinance. Now, if I was in, the situation where it was in the middle of the sale, like I said before, you would just have to assess, that situation and see if it's worth ordering a whole new appraisal, depending on your list price and, the buyer's purchase price. And it just, there's more steps. There's more, steps involved in that situation. But yeah, so I ordered the new appraisal and I got the value that I knew that I should have gotten with the new appraisal. So it was worth it for me. It worked out in my best interest ordering a new appraisal because I got the value that I knew I should have gotten. And I could have just laid down, and I could have just took it for what it was and just like, oh, well, my property is not worth what I thought it was, and then had to wait, months or years to try to do another cash out refinance. And I wasn't okay with that because I knew what my property was worth. I knew what it was valued or what it should be valued at. But it doesn't always work out that way. It really doesn't. I just recently did a cash out refinance on another one of my properties, a duplex, and I thought it was going to be worth more than what it is. And it happens. It's a part of the game. You kind of you can overvalue properties sometimes. Some areas are harder to run comps in than others. And this was an area that was pretty hard to find comps in. So I wasn't that surprised that it came back lower than what I thought, but I still thought I had a pretty good idea of what it would come back at, and it came back low. This appraiser is actually a pretty he's a pretty strict appraiser. I've had him before, and he's not my favorite appraiser because we don't always see eye to eye on things, but this is one of the ones where I didn't win in this situation, and it's going to happen. It happens. You don't always win them all. But it came back lower, and I actually challenged the appraisal, and he still didn't budge. And even though I had all the updates and I had the comps that I felt was justifiable, but this area was a very hard area to comp, and so when that happens, the appraisers are more on the conservative side. They don't want to overvalue a property. And, but it is what it is. I challenged it. I didn't want to order a new appraisal because the money that I was getting was more than enough than what I needed. And then with the lower loan amount, I cash flowed more, but I still got a lot of cash out of that property. And so I was fine with it. So it's really situational. It really depends on the situation, whether if you want to challenge it, order a new one, accept it for what it is. It really just depends on your situation. But I want you to know that you do not have to just accept an appraisal. Don't just think that, if it comes back low or lower than you expected, that's just what it is, because it's not. You can challenge it or you can order a new appraisal. You have every right to do that. So I just wanted to come on here and just let you know that if you ever are in that situation, you have options. Don't think that you're stuck or you just have to accept that. You have options. If you got value out of this video, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next video.